Tell us about the initiatives at Dine Brands that you want to share.
We've done a lot within Dine Brands in 2022. In fact, we 4x'd our CapEx expenditures for IT this year as compared to previous years on average. So we've got a lot of initiatives I can sit here and talk about. I can talk about it pretty much the entire session. But when you think about things like restaurant technology, point of sale, new point of sale for IHOP, we're actually having discussions around new point of sale for Applebee's as well. We hopefully will make a decision there. Point of sale includes point of sale KDS and tablets and with payment swiping capabilities. Just the things that are in the restaurant, if you will. And then more specifically in terms of what we're doing and we executed against this year is in our digital space. So we needed to reskin, complete a new user experience for our website and mobile app for IHOP. So that was a big deal for us. And probably the signature implementation we had this year was really our loyalty program. It was really the first for IHOP, and it's really the first in what I believe in the dining or the family dining segment of the restaurant industry. So it was a big deal for us for those reasons. The work we had to do, the prep for it was huge. You know, when you think about when you want to endeavor a big initiative like that, what we really benefited from was the acquiring of new talent, people that came in from the hospitality industry, which, as many of you know, that's really a strong. You have a lot of strong talent in that space when it comes to loyalty, and that really made a difference. And then, of course, we had built a base case around what we thought would be critical as it relates to selling the loyalty program, which included really running a number of tests. What we learned was in our initial test was we had 5x times the amount of traffic coming into the restaurant given the loyalty program. We also saw that those folks that had a high degree of folks that actually participated in the loyalty program, also we saw that there was actually a higher degree of revenue. So there was a direct correlation between signups and revenue for that restaurant. Similarly, if lower numbers of accounts also represented a lower amount of revenue coming into the restaurant. So we saw that as well. The program is called the International Bank of Pancakes. Really, really proud of it. Get a chance, take a look at it, download the application. It's basically a kind of a take on to crypto. You know, crypto's been a big deal. Whether you like it or you love it or hate it or whatever, there's no question it's been an impact. So it's really a take on that. So, but it's a big deal for us. For every $5 you get a pan coin, and the pan coin equates to one pancake, and you can redeem right there on your mobile app. So don't want to take up too much time, but that's essentially what it is. The journey, and I'll just add one other point here, because from a technology perspective, we actually got all this done. And when I say all of this, it means, you know, building a loyalty app, actually redoing our web mobile app, and doing that in the space of about 9 months, and getting everything integrated. You have to integrate with all the other technologies you have as well, point of sale, and also feed the data to the data warehouse and being able to use that information to make informed decisions. So again, it was a big deal for us. But and I'll just add that we initially projected we would have 1.5 million accounts set up this year. It launched in April of this year. We're up to about 3.6 million accounts set up in the platform. So it's been a huge success so far.
So this is my first stint on the executive team, and the transition from what I call more tactical and less strategic has been interesting in the sense that from a collaborative standpoint, right, getting the buy-in of ops and marketing and really understanding how to partner to get initiatives across the finish line, whereas before I was more of a tactical doer. So someone gave me the direction, and I love that aspect of just doing. And so now I'm contributing in different ways. One of the things I think about is how we brought ops in this year to be a true partner, right? I know we all want to think tech runs the restaurant and marketing runs this, but really at the ground level, at the foundational level, it's about what operations can execute and how it impacts our guests. And so not a new concept, but what we created this year was what we call our Ops Tech Task Force. And these are operators that are really tech savvy, and we brought them along from vetting technology through to deployment. That's one area where like a tactical piece of how we bridge the gap. The other thing we did was really, I had to learn how to contribute in different ways. I mentioned I love being a doer, right? And so I really struggled early on with what am I actually contributing, because it didn't feel like I was doing much or having an immediate impact. But as I stepped away and looked at the 10,000-foot view, and the executive team helped me understand this, I had actually made a huge impact. I built the team from scratch. We only had about 3 people, and now we're up to 15. From PCI to a full help desk to a menu team. And so that was an interesting thing to, in the moment, you don't realize the impact. But as I stepped away, I was like, wow, this is a different way of contributing. Don't feel like you're not contributing as much. The other things we did, I forget the opening speaker, but really we set a mission and a purpose around what our team was there to do. And I didn't set that purpose. We collaboratively did that so that we all had buy-in from the initiation, so that moving forward, we knew what our purpose and mission was to the company. One of the other things is, how do you build a team that actually executes at a high level? And so I really got to dive deep into some of my leadership qualities from my sports days and building a highly functional team by empowering them to make decisions. They don't need me to make all the decisions. They know they can move forward. And one of the things we really preach is fail forward and fail fast. If we're going to try something, if we're going to test something, let's do it. Let's get it out there. We're never going to have it perfect anyway. You know you're going to have enhancements along the way. So how fast can we get an MVP to market, fail, and take those learnings and turn those learnings into something? So it's been a really transformational year for me in terms of growth and understanding how to operate at an executive level and contribute in ways that are different but just as impactful.
I think that's so relatable to people who are in leadership roles or who aspire to. It's there's a real journey there. And Kevin is modest. He was a NFL professional football player. That's not why he's up here. He's up here for his extraordinary contributions to the restaurant technology industry. But and again, we'll get back to some takeaways for the audience on that. Now, Flavio Diomede from Starbucks. I know you have some technology to share with the audience of labor focused, but also an exciting new initiative that you arrived here last night from New York City, overseeing an extraordinary venture. So we're eager to hear about both those things.
Okay, well, so maybe talk a little bit about that one first. So we're opening a new flagship store in New York City at the ground level of the Empire State Building. It's a 3-level store, about 23,000 square feet. It opens in a week and a half. And it's part of one of the efforts around Starbucks is this experiential retail. If you haven't visited our roasters and our reserve stores, they kind of serve as our kind of tip of the spear on innovation for especially the food category, which is a new area for us. We're always looking for how to improve food attachment. And so those stores really serve as experiential places. We're also testing several new technologies. That's the other thing that we do, use those locations to try out new technologies to engage consumers, some of which are kind of raised from our core stores, some of which we develop there and then bring to the core store. So things like digital menu boards and different order status systems, various integrations with our vendor partners. So for example, that store is gonna have order at table. It's also gonna have table service. You can actually reserve a table in this restaurant. There's a whole floor dedicated to what we call experiences and sort of the story of coffee. And if anybody who heard Howard Schultz talk about this idea of the romance of coffee and kind of how you experience the product in a different way, it really kind of drives people later to go to our, I'm gonna call mainstream locations. It's the sort of thing that we do in those stores. And we have several of them around the globe, and that's the other thing that we use around the stores for is to kind of exchange techniques and methods across the globe, and to showcase how we produce our product. Because a lot of our consumers don't really realize how embedded Starbucks is from essentially farm to table. We have a farmer support center in Costa Rica. We are helping farmers to figure out how to deal with things like climate change and what that does to coffee. And that really kind of comes to life in these big locations that we have. So that's what's happening in New York City in a couple of weeks. It's a little bit tied to that in terms of our aha moments. It's a journey that started really 5 years ago, even before the pandemic. The need for us to focus on how to make the life of the partner in the store better. We call the employees partners, essentially because they're all shareholders. And one of the things around labor, and we all know the difficulties we have with labor, even now, more now than before, but the idea that the people who work in the stores deserve parity with our consumers. We had done a really great job of engaging consumers and kind of creating this delightful experience for you as a Starbucks user. What does that supposed to look like if you work in the store? Because we are making it a lot worse for them as digital grows. And I think everybody here who goes to a Starbucks has this experience, right? You walk into a store, the store is super busy, there's nobody there, there's 50 or 60 cups in the counter, and you can't get anybody to pay attention to you because they're too busy making the other digital orders. And so we wanted to solve that problem. And we wanted to bring back the connection, which is really core to the brand, between the barista and the person either on the drive-thru or who's walking into the store. And what we figured out is that we needed more than, I'm going to call a kitchen management system, and more of a manufacturing execution system. This actually came up in the breakfast earlier today. And so we've invested a lot in creating an innovation platform that allows us to then quickly iterate on figuring out how to make that experience better, right? It's an ongoing journey. It allowed us to then plug into the system things like our equipment automation. We're investing a lot in intelligent equipment to make our baristas smarter, essentially. We have one of the largest integrated IoT solutions in the country with our espresso machines, the Mastrenas. They're all IoT enabled. We have full visibility on what's happening on those machines. Part of it is to allow us, for example, to do preemptive maintenance cycles on them, so we know when the machine is going to break before it does. Similarly, we know the velocity in which they're producing product, which allows us to better stagger the production flow in various stores. It allows us to do things like format innovation. One of the things we found out, for example, is that there's some of our employees really enjoy more working on the production line. And so we have started actually, work with ghost kitchens using the exact same technology stack that we use in our stores. So part of what we wanted to do with having this separate platform was to have a uniform experience regardless of what the format is that you're working on. It could be a pickup-only store. It could be what we call a delivery-only store. It could be a store that you're familiar with, or a drive-through only store. The pandemic actually accelerated this for us too, and that is essentially what we call purpose-built ecosystem. And that is build a store that fits either the physical environment or the consumer environment and the partner or the employee environment in terms of them feeling like they have choices. Because one thing, and you're going to probably start hearing this a little bit more, we're positioning Starbucks as a great place to grow a career. We're not assuming that people are going to work there forever, but we want to give them some real-life experience in the ability to learn advanced skills that they're going to use elsewhere. Because we do realize those are essentially transient jobs. Eventually people move on. We want them to stay there as long as we possibly can, obviously. our turnover is actually going down, which is a good thing. And a lot of this is, I think, is ascribed to the fact that we're making these really big strides in looking at that population as co-equals to our consumers.
Hospitality Technology has a monthly webinar that we call The Point. It's 30 minutes and we get to the point. And I've had the pleasure of interviewing Justin on The Point. And one of the questions I always put to restaurant operators, and I'm going to put it to these panelists, is pretend I run Bobby's Pizzeria. It's a humble organization, maybe a few locations. I don't have your budget. I don't have your name recognition. However, I want to learn your technology lessons. So you don't have to answer like specifically within the parameters of my little pizzeria, but it's a question I'm fond of asking, and for what Scott Lawton called actionable insights. Justin, when you spoke about loyalty and this extraordinary, pretty fast, an innovation sprint, if you will, to implement loyalty across two iconic brands, when you think about what you would tell a restaurant operator looking to, we all know loyalty is so important, but once we've said that, the question becomes, how do you actually make it happen?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is, quite frankly, understand with the loyalty program, at least what we ran into anyway, the perception of that was, or the concern was, you're going to be giving away free food, right? And there's those that believe that, right? You're just giving away free food. It's really not going to result in increased revenue for the restaurant. And I think one of the things that we learned is that early on, you've got to give it time. You've got to be patient with it. It takes a little bit of time for our guests to adopt that type of thing. I mean, it's going to be new. It's going to take some time. The other thing I would say would be, don't underestimate the power of the servers to promote the program. The other thing we learned, and in fact, I went to an IHOP and we had servers that were wearing the T-shirts, the International Bank of pancakes, but there really wasn't a lot of discussion around what it was. So what we're doing now is beginning to incentivize those individuals now because they're your best salespeople, right? They're gonna talk to you about the program. You're naturally gonna ask them about it. They're gonna share with you how to redeem your points and things like that. And so that's one of the other things that's extremely important as well. And the other thing I would say would be, if you're implementing a program like that, but also don't underestimate the amount of time it takes to deploy. We got it done very quickly, but I would say that there was a lot of valuable lessons learned with that as well. We were pinned up against a national launch. We had communicated to the street that we were actually going to deploy it, and so therefore a lot of us had a lot of concerns around, we had no choice but to deliver it, right? We were under the gun to make it happen. So it is a big deal, but I would say that those would be the three things I would take away from deploying a program like that.
Thank you very much, Justin. Kevin, same question, but within the parameters of what you were sharing about leadership, and what takeaways would you offer to restaurant technology?
Yeah, and I'm going to probably speak more to the Bobby's Pizzeria side of it, because in my previous role, I was at Inspire Brands, where we had pretty much unlimited capital and resources. So we moved at a pace that was unimaginably fast. Coming to a smaller brand and having less resources and capital, I really had to understand the business outcomes. That was a key contributor to what programs we actually implemented this year and where we're going to see the most value for an ROI on those investments. And so one of the takeaways I really came away with is really understanding your current tech stack and spending time on the key components of the tech stack that you need to take depth in. I know in today's environment, we talk a lot about how the POS system is becoming obsolete, but it is very much still the hub and spoke, and either the contributing or limiting factor on what you can do with the surrounding tech stack. And so I spend a lot of time really understanding the nuances of our POS system. And while the other ones I just went for breadth in the POS system, menu build, et cetera, I really understood that to understand how it would move our programs forward. The other piece I would say is really invest in your people up front, not from their capabilities, but getting to know them, right? In order to move the needle, you have to really have a genuine connection with your team today. I think that is critical for team camaraderie, culture building, et cetera. But more importantly, and this all happens to us, when I ping you at midnight because there's a fire, are you going to be willing to respond, or are you going to hit that snooze button until the morning, right? And building that rapport with your team really helps. And so the last piece I would say is, being a leaner organization, make sure you're very clear in your requirements up front. There's a lot of vendors that we deal with and offer different capabilities, but for whatever reason, the ball is always moving once it's rolling. And so really being clear in your requirements and what is needed up front has really helped us go to market a lot faster because we have clear expectations set up front.
I love that. And you are sort of tying our conference together, because we opened with Dr. Deborah Gilboa sharing how important it was for employees to have that sense of purpose and understanding mission and even authenticity. And I feel like you're speaking to that. And Flavio at Starbucks, I love what you said. I mean, I love that you call employees partners, because they truly are. But then the notion of developing, encouraging them in various ways to stay as long as possible in their careers. I love that. But we would love to hear your thoughts, again, it doesn't have to be for Bobby's Pizzeria, but for restaurants who seek to learn lessons from what you are accomplishing with workforce at Starbucks. What would your thoughts be?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to kind of recognize up front that, kind of building on what you were saying, we kind of sit on the other side, right? There's this perception and also a reality that we have a lot of financial resources at our disposal in a company of this size. That presents us with a different side of the same problem, and that is, how do we move with agility? Because the problems that we face in an organization like that is there's a lot of people to bring along, right? It's a different kind of friction. And even in that scenario, it's not like we have unlimited money or time to do things, right? There's other constraints, and kind of goes back to your point too, which is we're given deadlines, right? The CEO goes into an investor conference, this actually happened in 2018, and says to the investors, we're going to have delivery in 2,000 stores in 60 days. And we said, oh, that's nice. Now I know what I need to do for the next 60 days. And there's not enough amount, the money is not going to solve for that, right? You can't throw money at some of these problems. And so there's a couple of things, or maybe three, that I could say that I think apply uniformly. One is build a culture of ownership, right? We trust our people to do the right thing, and we give them very well-defined outcomes. And so we optimize for the outcome, not for the deliverable. Because it's easy for us to say, I want this done. Instead, we try to say, how about we get this result, right? So we've adopted this idea that's not even new, right? The idea of the OKRs. And that you can apply, frankly, at any team size. And people tend to rise to that level of expectations. That's one thing. The other, and it kind of stems from this idea of treating everyone as a stakeholder, is user-centered design. We train people on it. We invest a lot of time in developing facilitators and sort of figuring out how to solve the problem from a stakeholder perspective, because it tends to optimize for sort of the optimal result that we're trying to get versus the budget or the timeline. Ultimately, that sort of arises as a result if we're focusing on serving the people on kind of all sides of the table, which includes, in our case, and frankly, we could do a better job of that, but it's a constant battle, the people who need to operate the technical systems. Because another common mistake is we optimize for getting the thing in production, and then we say, well, now I'm going to support this, right? And then we're killing people essentially because it's taking 3 times as much effort to keep the thing running. Mm-hmm. So we got the press release, everybody is happy with the results, we're getting the sales, and now nobody wants to work on the tier 3 support team that actually supports that, because it's hell to configure data. And if you take that into account up front, it reduces a lot of friction. And so kind of the overarching for us here is, if we remove the things that cause us to waste time, we're going to appear to be way, way faster. And that is doable, doesn't matter what size of your team is. Focus on the waste.